Good morning, traders. This is Perry Wilkie with. Let's try that again. Good morning, traders. This is Perry Wilkie with StartupTrading.com. It is 9:09 a.m. Eastern Time on Thursday, September 3rd, 2020. So, this is possibly setting up to be a day where the bears might get a little bit of action ahead of non-farm payroll. We'll see how it shakes up. But I like how this is looking for the bears for a pullback. And long story short, we'll go through the analysis. But I think we could um, end up down at 35.10, but I would be looking to target the majority of your position just under yesterday's low, like right at 35.31, and then try to leave some runners on before then. There are, obviously we could get all the way down to 34.72, 75 ish. But I think that's asking for a little bit much ahead of non-farm payroll. I don't think we're going to take out, you know, all of this action from Friday through Tuesday. So I don't think we'll be able to churn through all that. So I don't think that level 4 is, in play today. But I do think that, as long as we can stay under this blue box, and that'll be likely resistance this afternoon if indeed we do stay under it. So, uh, we are a little overdue. If we back up here and look at this in time, right, we can see that we really haven't had a pullback at all, and this is just a minor blip on the road for one day that didn't even take out the previous week's low. So we have to go back to some longer term charts really to look at where the pullback came, where the last pullback was, and let's just go back in time. Looks like we haven't had a serious pullback since starting on June 19th. So, and that bottom was on June 29th. So from June 29th on, we haven't had anything to speak of to the downside at all. And we'll see if, this is just a one-day wonder. You can see some of these red candles in here that were unable to really do much damage. And the point of control for yesterday's trading action was 35.39. That would be a good place to look to get to as well. But with non-farm payroll coming up tomorrow, we could maybe go a smidgen lower than that. And it could be a day where we really don't get any traction to the upside all the way to the closing bell. It might be where they actually keep their foot on the throat of the bulls all session long because, let's face it, they've got some pent-up energy here. So looking at all the indexes in the overnight session, we've got the NASDAQ, which has been, relatively weaker the last few days, as I've been pointing out, down under value area low already. It had no split distributions yesterday. If you look at these blue boxes, they're usually like, I use them mainly to mark where trades have went off above the bell high after the bell or below the bell low after the bell before futures close. Today I'm marking raceways. So these are what we call signal prints in profile theory. These are where only one 30-minute bar traded yesterday, so there's lack of participation in these areas. So they can either act as support or resistance, and that's what you should guess the first time that you see them trade, or they can act as an area where the market wants to go back and re-auction. Right, but you should always expect them to be rejection areas until proven otherwise. So as we look, we've got that both of those in the value area high zone as I calculate value areas for the Russell. So below this lower box and below value area low weakens for the Russell, and that's going to be below 1584.40, and then things can get going to the downside. And then for the ES, the box ranges from 35.69 to 35.74 half. So from 35.69 to 35.74 half is where this blue box is. So getting back above that will be more bullish later, but then you've got value area high as a lid, you've got the settlement, and then the previous day's high of the day. So I think that we'll probably be trapped under here for the early morning session, but we'll see. And what I'm looking for is to see if two of these three lose their distribution, right? So right now the Russell is maintaining above the upper blue box, and so is the Dow. It's peaked into that box and is above it. The ES is the only one that is below it right now. So I'd like to see someone else join the party to the downside to give it a little bit more conviction. I'm not too concerned with how much to the downside the Nasdaq is or isn't. If you play the Nasdaq, it should be fair game. Pay attention to yesterday's low, and then we can look at some other levels on the chart here in just a second. So let's get into some of the overnight action. If we look at the session so far, we can see that overnight, nothing but the hope being reset for the bulls, right? So these, as I show you these next, this one and the next two slides here, this is the bull check in the upper right and the bear check in the lower right. So as we look at this, we can see that every time a new low is made, hopes for a Fibonacci sequence strikes again for the bulls, and all they've had all night long is their hopes continuously being reset, right? That's a sign of weakness for the bulls. And then if we look at the bears, right, they've got off to a sloppy start before really taking hold. So this orange line is the 61A, or line in the sand. You can see sloppily trading it at between 9 and 11 last night, then coming back up. They really got it broken between 3 and 4:30, right around when the Europeans got in there. But after that, if you look at the sequences, right, pretty much holding halfway back, holding the 38.2 short, holding the 38.2 short. So the bears are in modest control overnight for the ES. Looking at the Nasdaq, it is a much stronger picture, right? Lots of hope being reset up here for the bulls, and then for the bears, right? Barely dipping into the 61.8 at those same two time periods, and really aggressively staying. This purple, this 21.4 retracement, right, is an aggressive short area, and it's been staying under it. So much more aggressive to the downside for the Nasdaq. Looking at the Russell, excuse me, it's flat, right? It's the one that looks the strongest, and I don't do this same analysis for the Dow, but we'll throw it up here just to look at it. But you can see the Russell, right? Some hopes being reset, but no one's really getting anything. It's more of a chop fest, right? The bulls aren't getting anything, and neither are the bears. So we'll bring this up for the Dow real quick. And we can see for the Dow, it's slightly more bearish, but really not getting a whole lot of follow through every time one of the fib lines is hit. And if we look at, as the hopes being reset, they're not being reset from much lower of a basis like we looked at the other indices, as they just kept falling on the way down. So we'll set that back to the Russell. So as we look at the ES now, really what I'm looking for and what I'm watching, we'll add some lines on here, is this is going to be a little bit more important of an area to me. Just this node, that's going to come in at 35.46. Is going to be the base of that node. Below this, really, I think you're looking at these highs from before. So as we put this in, that's going to come down to 35.24, basically 24.25 is where it could stop. So I like to look at previous resistance as support, probably when you're falling. And then you can see, I'm going to dot this one out, and we are close to this right now. And I'm expecting to get, let the bears have a little bit today. And if they can't breach this, this is pretty close to where we are now. You can see this 56.25. If they can't get under that, they've got some real problems at hand, and I think they actually do need either the Russell or the Dow to join back in with them as well. So let's look at the Nasdaq and see where we think it can go to the downside. So we've got 12,199 below to basically, I'm going to clean this one up a little bit. $12,166. So that zone right in there, and if we box it out, and when I say zone, that's what I'm looking at, this whole between these two lines as an area. So this should be support, and you can see it was tested yesterday. So what do you think the chances are that it holds today? It's possible, but it's probably not probable. This lower line could hold the 12,166, but I wouldn't be buying it. I'd wait till it proves itself and then buy the next sequence up if you're want to play to the long side. I don't think this is a day where you try to buy the dips, to be honest with you. I think you let the market shake out. And I think if you want to be a little frothy, you could try to sell the rips today until you're proven wrong. Use your stops on the server to both sides. I have not been using stops to the server when I buy dips for the last basically 3.5 to 5 weeks. Today, if I buy a dip, I will be using a stop on the server. So as we look at, if this area breaks, I think we can head down to 12,091, and I think that this 12,166 should be resistance at that point in time, and then we'll see if we, can stair step and two step all the way down, and we could take this line up a little bit more. I'm not going to move it, but right around 12,000. 12,007 is the area I'll be looking at as the top of this node. And you can see that, you also have these highs in here that right around 1240. But I'd be more interested in, not necessarily getting long, but if you are able to ride that down, let's suppose we play out, we come down here, we lose this, we come back up, we pop, we short, we come back down. We weekly hold this and we start falling. I think between 12,040 and 12,010 is really where you want to take the majority of that position off. I don't think that today you're going to really get much below there. If you start seeing it go on the other side of this node, which is 11,964, 965 basically, then you can look for something. But basically, you have made enough money today to the downside that you can just look at it again tomorrow. I don't think that's going to happen that quickly. And we'll look at the level 4s for it as well in a minute. So looking at the Dow, right? So the Dow is up into this zone, and I could put that gold colored box between here, but it's really at this 29,014 to 29,071 is where we're at, and you can see it's not really losing that area. I think below that area opens up the door probably only to this. I'll go ahead and mark this off, and we'll dot it out. So somewhere right in this area. So 28,847 to 28,885, and it's the same thing. This is what you're looking at, is that is a zone. And again, if this zone is lost, that should be resistance when it comes back above it or to it, right? So support becomes resistance. So those are the areas for that. So below that, you get down to this high. So there's a lot of congestion. This is the lower end of this node. I'll go ahead and throw a level up there as well, and we will dot those out. I'll come back and do it later. I won't bore you with my, changing dash lines to dots lines at this point. But this 28 762 would be the next, pop on the or area that I'd be looking for on the way down. And then you got the valley and here, and then so on and so forth. So I'll narrate this a little bit. If we do end up losing this 29-14, right? There's a lot being said. If the Bulls have their way, right? They've held this all night. They could just dip below it a little bit, try to fake some people out, and money could go into the Dow. The indexes don't have to do anything today, basically. So looking at the Russell, remember we do have non-farm payroll tomorrow morning. So I think that some of them need a little bit of a pullback, but the Dow has fought really hard to get where it is. And we are, for the Russell, the main line I'd be watching is right around this 1582.30 that we've been watching for a while. And then you've got that same zone above. If we do end up turning bullish today at 15, it's basically 1600 plus or minus 2 points. So is where that zone is. So as we look back at all the indexes, kind of put a wrap on our thoughts here. So we want to see if the Russell or the Dow can join the ES to the downside, right, and get below these distributions. So you've got you've got a triple distribution in the Russell and the Dow, and a double distribution in the ES that we're watching. So getting below these blue boxes is going to be a sign of weakness. But if the Russell or the Dow can't join in, the party's not going to be that great for the bears. So I wouldn't target below the point of control or value area low. So basically 35.34 to 35.39 if these two can't join in the party. If we start getting above this box, right, it doesn't mean you need to turn bullish. It might mean that you just want to sit on your hands till tomorrow, but it'll probably be more choppy until you start taking out some of these highs. If the Russell and the Dow are already over these highs as the ES is getting the top of this box, that's another thing. But what's likely to happen is this morning, for the first 2 hours, right, we trend down and maybe we find a bottom. So there's one of two scenarios. Right around the European close, we find a bottom. We wiggle around over lunch. We maybe make another incremental low, and then we kind of respond back up towards the bottom of this box for the close. The other scenario is if the bears really compress it, right, get a little bit of a pullback today, that we don't really ever get a retracement back to the upside today. We end up closing on the lows, maybe get an underwater close tonight, maybe a little follow through when the session opens up tonight, coming in non-farm payroll, and then you trap some bears overnight for non-farm payroll, and we just end up right around here after being, maybe 30 to 50 points lower. We end up back here for tomorrow's close, or maybe even put in a new high for the week. So we'll see how all this plays out. I'll be in the Discord chat room filling in for Jack this morning. And I'll be going over my technical analysis and what I like. So if you like this type of technical analysis, give the video a thumbs up. If you want to load these grids on your chart, and I'll be sharing the overnight values shortly, there's a free 7-day trial link at the bottom of this video and additional information. I hope you guys have a great day, and I will talk to you tomorrow. The rest of you, I'll see you